Retirement, I like to think of as just like the ability to stop working if you chose to. And in order for that to happen, you need to have passive income coming in, right? Income that you aren't working for, that still naturally comes in, right? Even when you sleep. It's like Warren Buffett's quote, right? You gotta make money till you sleep, or you're gonna work till you die.
There's no shortage of information today, and wisdom is rare. This show exists to slow things down and to learn from those that have success and that have the wisdom as well. Not only that, they're making an impact in people's lives. So my guest today is Wilson Liang, and I'm very honored to have this conversation with you. We talked off screen, and my intention here is to, one, honor you and kind of share your success with somebody that's listening that may be able to take something from this conversation and actually take actionable steps to do something to build a business. So that is important. And also, I want to talk about just off script and talk about business. But before we get into business, before your audience and before your success, where did the origins of Wilson start? And what was your thought process at that stage of your life?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, man, yeah, I go pretty far back for this, but I guess for people who don't know me, or some may know this, so I'm first generation, right? Parents were immigrants. Grew up pretty poor, right? Grew up in poverty. I always joke around, like I grew up in a basement and I thought like, it's pretty spacious, right? And then I went to other people's homes and I'm like, what is this? This is so big. And like growing up, I didn't know much. It's the traditional kind of Asian America household where it's like, study, work hard, go to school, and then everything's gonna work out. And I think for me, the big pivots that changed in my life is when my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. I was in high school. Right, so everything goes from like normal autopilot, and then when something like that happens, you grow up really fast, right? So that made me had to mature really quickly. And my dad, bless his soul, like it's a great father, and it's unfortunate stage 4, right? Stage 4, and then even at that young age, I knew what that meant. So in my mind, I think there was a flip switch where I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be man of the house now, right? And that's kind of my dad had a great team. Ended up passing away, and that drove me to go into healthcare, right? So that's when I became a PA, so that's a physician assistant, worked in oncology, did a bunch of things, and when I was practicing medicine, I realized, hey, there must be more than just like working, grinding, and learning money is a big component of that. And now, I've had a pretty interesting journey, have my own business, right? I work in health tech now, so I transitioned from oncology to now health tech and oncology. And buy a bunch of investments, travel the world. So then I try to share with everybody, like you can do it all, and that's kind of my journey.
Wow, it's a lot. You condensed everything, but I think there's a lot to unpack there. One thing that I want to highlight in what you just said is a lot of people shift or pivot when they feel the pain.
Correct.
Of something. And as you said, reality happened for you, and you had to grow up fast when your dad was diagnosed with stage 4. Rest in peace to your father. And I've had a similar experience with my mother when she got diagnosed with cancer. What I'm saying is that story resonates with me personally, in that when you go through an experience like that, reality kicks in, and sometimes your own mortality, becomes more visible, for lack of better words. And you start to move different and you see life differently. So you said from there, you start traveling the world. I don't know what order it was, but then the business comes in. You started to go down that road of healthcare. And then if you can talk about the transition from, or the evolving from healthcare to your business right now, the financial hospital. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I think naturally, whether it's healthcare providers or just people in general, especially entrepreneurs, like if you look back at like why we do what we do, it's to help people. It always starts from helping people, right?
Yes.
As generic as it seems. So when I was in healthcare, it was really rewarding, especially with my background. And then essentially when I first started working, essentially all I did was I saved patients who had cancer in the hospital, and that's what we did. We just saved lives, right? When they got sick, went in there, and it was really rewarding. But also really tough, right? And yes, it's fulfilling to help, one patient at a time. But then you also realize that there's a lot of other people who also need help, and amongst that, like in healthcare, there's a lot of burnout. It's a lot of frustration. We do good work, but like, it's also like really, really hard on us, and it's kind of this unspoken like we take it. And kind of where my business started was especially when it comes to like finances, it's not taught. I mean, in general, in America, most people are financially illiterate. And you would think if you get like a master's, you go to school, become a healthcare professional, you're like better with money. It's not true. Yeah. I find that actually like the smartest people in their field, like when you look at like if you look at their finances, usually they're not, because it's not taught, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. It's like you talk to like a PhD in mathematics or something, and they're like, just because I'm good at math doesn't mean I'm good at personal finance. It's very different. And where a lot of the burnout, I think, comes, especially for healthcare, is when you feel like you don't have control and you don't have options anymore. And usually that's tied to finances. Like as long as like, whether it's student loans, whether like it's like I want to work less, I want to spend more, I want to raise a family, money always comes back. And it was something that's not talked about, right? So for me, it was kind of taking the lessons, because the reason I had to learn finances so quickly was because when my dad passed, my mom took care of everything. But in reality, she didn't really, because she just like, I just held everything in cash, right? And then when I was old enough and I was about to graduate school, she was like, okay, I've never asked you about money, but like, she asked me, hey, can I retire? Like, I'm 50, I'm tired. Can I retire? I was like, Mom, I don't even know what that means. Can you stop working? And she was like, well, I got like a 401k, got like a pension, I think, and Dad left behind some money. It's like, can I stop working? And for me, it was like, dang, I felt pretty smart. I'm graduating soon. I can save patients' lives, but I don't know the first thing about money.
Wow.
Right? Like money can come in and then you can spend it, but it's like, oh shoot, like how do you get to retirement? And I was like, dude, I am about to make 6 figures, but if I don't even know the answer to this question, it's like, what is the point of doing all this? So kind of led me down the journey of figuring out for my mom.
Okay.
And in that journey, I was like, oh, I wonder if other people know about this.
Yeah.
No one does, right? And no one talks about it. So that's kind of how I started. I figured it out for my mom. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a pretty interesting thing. Yeah. And then I wondered if it was applicable and if other people would be interested. And then I started teaching other people.
Let's talk about that. I think that's a great point that you make, in that many people don't think about retirement often enough or even have a plan. So would you mind sharing a little bit about how you looked at your mom's situation and what was some practical steps that you took and the results that came from it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think ultimately there are a lot of ways to think about retirement. Everyone thinks it's an age, just partially true, but that's kind of forced on you, like because everyone, you have to think about it at like 67. If that's when Social Security kicks in, Medicare kicks in. But really, as you also know too, retirement, I like to think of it as just like the ability to stop working if you chose to. And in order for that to happen, you need to have passive income coming in, right? Income that you aren't working for, that still naturally comes in, right? Even when you sleep. It's like Warren Buffett's quote, right? You're gonna make money till you sleep, or you're gonna work till you die.
Right.
Which is true. It's very true.
100%.
Right. I just watched a documentary, like people like in their 80s and 90s still working because they didn't plan, right? And I think the big misconception people think is like retirement is this thing that's really far away, and you don't think about it until, most people don't think about it until like they're almost there.
Yes.
Like time to check.
Yep.
It's usually too late then.
And they realize that it's really not enough to sustain the lifestyle that they wanted.
Nope.
A lot of people that I talk to, when they talk about retirement, they always say, oh, I'm gonna travel a lot when I retire. And a lot of the people that I've seen, say that's what they were gonna do and that was their plan, when they got there, realized it wasn't enough for that.
Correct.
And to add to that, like 401ks and those retirement plans, those are a supplemental to what your retirement plan should be.
Yeah.
It's just one source of income. It shouldn't be all of it,
Yeah.
right? And it is tied to the stock market. So if there's a dip, then there's a lot of people I know during COVID that were planning to retire that could no longer retire because their retirement account took a hit, right? So yeah, no, I think that's important. So what were some of the things that you uncovered in that process?
Sure.
And then what were the results that you got from being intentional of how to navigate that?
Yeah, so I guess a good way to explain it, like retirement, usually when it's talked about, they talk about 3 pillars of retirement, right? And this is like traditional old school. And it's interesting, like the way my mom retired and then the way new generation retires is very different. The way if you're a 6-figure earner, the way you're an entrepreneur, the way you retire is very different too. So the way I learned it was my mom's way, right? Because you had to learn my mom's situation, right? Because the way she's retiring is different than how I'm going to retire. But back in the day, it was pensions, right? Social Security, and then like your own personal savings. Typical American saves about 3 to 7% of their income. So like no one saves shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that was okay back in the day because people had pensions and people had Social Security. Problem is pensions are gone, right? A lot of them are gone unless you work for the government, military, VA, right? Social Security, I don't think it's going away, but it's slowing down, and the distributions might be smaller, and they might push it out a little bit by the time we retire. And then third is savings, right? So back in the day, it didn't really matter as much if you saved because you had the other 2 cushions. So that was actually my mom's situation, right? For her, it was interesting because I was able to calculate, like you were saying, hey mom, when you retire, like what are your expenses going to be? What do you think you're going to spend? Calculate these things. And then, okay, if you stopped working, what income's coming in? She had a small pension. She had a small 401k. And then she had Social Security coming in. And it was like, oh, it's actually not enough. Like, shit, it's not enough. So, did what every good son does, right? So I supplement, right? So I ended up paying off the house because I was like, that's the biggest expense she has. So I paid off the house. Don't always do that, right? I learned that the hard way. Don't always pay off homes. And then the other thing is I provided her supplemental income, right? So now she retired pretty early. She retired in her 50s. Okay. I'm really happy. But that also showed me that it's a math equation, right? You kind of have to predict what you're going to spend, and then you have to figure out, okay, how do I create income? And if not, then you have to fill the gap. Fortunately for mom, it's like, well, I'll fill the gap, right? But then for other people, it's a very different picture, right? So because pensions don't exist anymore, a lot of people rely on like 401ks, investing, stock market, investing in real estate, starting businesses. I have strong feelings about 401ks. We can talk more about that later, right? But traditionally, you have to invest in yourself, and it's tough because there's a whole generation that didn't need to invest, right? You just work at the same job and then you retire, so then they were never taught it.
Yes.
So then they're like, just do what I did, but it's like it doesn't work if your job doesn't, for example, have a pension, and if you don't want to work full time forever, right? So there's a lot of, I think, like shifts in kind of society, the way we think about retirement and the way it's set up. It's just you have to be aware of it.
100%. So when you talk about the retirement having different revenue streams, 2-part question. Did you create more revenue streams for your mom's situation? And you mentioned her retirement is different than yours. I'd like to know more about like what your retirement plans are.
Yeah, I like it. So for my mom, initially, it was just my income that came in and I just paid her. Okay. Right, that was supplemental. Now I invest. She still invests and manage her portfolio, and she gets income through there. Right, she just sells stock off. She has a little bit from her pension come in, and then I supplement. Now I actually supplement her income through lending, through private lending. Okay. Right. So that's a more loaded topic, which I think I'll cover at some point. But it's a different type. It's an alternative investment. Okay. So she has income coming in through there as well, and it's enough. It's interesting. People spend a lot less in retirement than they think. Maybe in the initial years they spend a lot because they're like, I'm free, and then it gets boring, and then they spend less. But the way I think about retirement is, I always say like retirement is it's a spectrum, right? I don't think it's like you have to just stop working completely and then you're retired. It's more about, like, for me, my philosophy is you can like slowly work less and less and less and less, right? You want to build your passive income now, so then you can use it, right? And then afterwards, it's going to allow you to reduce your hours, right? Because a lot of us like what we do, right? If you think like, oh, financial freedom, be aggressive, and just like quit working is the answer, you're wrong. Because the moment you do it, like you can only sit on the beach and drink pina coladas for so many hours, right? Or so many days.
Right.
You're gonna get sick of it. Like humans are meant to work.
Yeah.
The reason people who typically want to retire early usually like really hate their lives or jobs.
Yeah.
That's what I find usually.
Yeah.
Like it's like, why do you want to retire so early? It's usually like a negative thing, right? In reality, I think you want to work as long as possible, but doing the things you want to do and then on your own time. So that's my version kind of retirement, right? It's kind of like making sure it's aligned and you're working on your terms, your hours, your job, and to do that, you need to have passive income coming in today.
Yeah.
Not later.
Yeah.
Right. So retirement accounts don't do a good job because the money's stuck in there. Right. It's I mean, you can pull it out, but then they'll slap you. Right. You get penalties, you get taxed, and it doesn't feel great. All the gains are gone.
Yeah.
So they're great if you like the company has a match or something, right? Or if you have like no discipline and like you put the money in there, so like you'll save. That's fine. But a lot of us, especially a lot of your listeners, right? And a lot of people who follow my work, we are disciplined. We're good at saving money, but if you put too much in retirement, you're gonna look back later and be like, wait, I want to do different moves. I might want to invest outside these accounts. I might want to invest in real estate. I might want to do alt investments. You can't.
Yeah.
Because all the money's stuck there.
Yeah. Or you take that big tax hit.
Take a tax hit and it doesn't feel great either.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the trap a lot of people go into. It's like for the typical American, like 401ks and IRAs, people who aren't like, it's not a bad place to start and it's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't set you up for freedom and more flexibility. And that's the thing you don't realize until you're in it.
Yeah.
And then like, until you're in it, and then you look back, you're like, oh shoot, I still don't have options.
And I love that you're talking about the 401k because this conversation comes up pretty frequently for me.
Yeah.
What do you say to the person maybe listening that maybe is leaving their W-2 or maybe got laid off and they have a 401k? The thought is, should I withdraw the whole thing, take a tax hit? What should I do? In that scenario, what advice would you give to that person listening?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and also like as disclaimer, it's like not financial advice, right? This is just in theory and just like education, but it really like any good, whether it's a financial advisor or a financial mentor, it always depends on your goals, right? It depends on like the age of that person, kind of how much they have in assets, how much income they have coming in, what they plan for retirement. It's a tricky question because there's a lot of things you can do. You like if you want to start a business and you want to go all in on the business, right? And you are like, I'm not worried about retirement. I just want to go all in and I need this to bootstrap, then, and depending on the size of it, then like withdraw, pay the penalty, right? But then you have to make sure like you have a good plan for like how I'm going to make this money back.
Yes.
Right. There are a lot of people who pulled money out during COVID, right? Because it was penalty free, because you could pull the money out of your retirement, so you can invest in like real estate. That was really right. Interest rates dropped.
Yes,
right?
that was the perfect time.
Accounts became open and you pull it out, but it's just don't like pull it out without a plan.
100%.
Yeah, you have to understand like there are consequences, right? Like it affects you long term, but then if short term you can make up for it, it's reasonable.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of hard to answer, but you have to kind of know like if I pull it out, what does that do to my future? And then if I do, what are the immediate like pain, right? So taxes and penalty. But then if you have access to this money now, what are you going to do with it? And if you don't have the answer to that, dig, figure it out, and then pull. But don't just pull in spontaneously, because that you'll get in trouble for that.
100%. What are your personal thoughts on the 401k?
Yeah. So the most interesting thing is like, so I used to think like 401ks, IRAs, those things were like you had to put money in, right? Because you hear people in their 60s, they're like, hey, if you don't put money in these things, you're gonna regret it. I wish I invested earlier. And everyone online, everyone's like, max out your 401, max your IRA, your work pushes you too. The thing is like, they're great for when you're in your 60s, but if you want like freedom and flexibility earlier, they're not that great, right? So like my wife and I, like she's a nurse practitioner, and we were really good with our finances, right? We saved a lot, put it into my retirement accounts, and we were, I think like 29 or 30 at the time, and then we got close to a mil in retirement accounts. And it's a really shitty feeling. You would think you feel good about it, right? But then you're like, nothing changed.
And you can't touch it.
Nothing changes. And I'm like, I'm a millionaire. Like on paper, yay, you have $1 million. But it's like, still got to go to work. I can't pull it out to pay the bills. And everyone's like, you're gonna be great for the future. Like at 67, you're gonna be amazing. And I'm like, I know, but that's, 37 years.
You want to enjoy life now.
away, right? Or it's like, I have this big pot of money, but we call it like paper money.
Yeah.
It's just numbers on a screen.
Yeah.
And it's, if you put too much into retirement, it starts becoming what we call like money jail. It looks great, but it's stuck in there. So if you wanted to pull some out to invest in real estate, you wanted to use it to help with childcare costs, you wanted to use it for a down payment for a primary home. I mean, there are ways you can do that, but then the money's not flexible.
Right.
So for me, I wish I built retirements aren't bad, right? If the funds are reasonable, and the company has a match, sure, do it. It's free money. But if you look at the people who are free, like earlier, 30s, 40s, 50s, if you look, they have like barely any money
in
a 401k and IRA. Where's most of the money? It's usually taxable brokerage, real estate, or business. Yeah. And that's the thing you don't see unless you have conversations like this with people who are actually free. Because everybody else, they're like, oh, just keep putting in the 401k. Like, why? Well, you're retired, but you're still stuck here.
Yeah.
So it's like, why am I gonna listen to you, right?
So for the person that, wants to go all in on a business, quit their W-2 and use their 401k, right? What would you advise, or advice would you give them to be successful in that process? The simple thought, I have, let's say 150,000 in my 401k. I'm tired of working. I'm not happy here. I want to take this and turn it into a business. I've had an idea that I've been sitting on for quite some time. Is this a good idea?
It depends, right? It depends because it's a little harder to calculate, but I would say I'm a pretty, I take risks, but I also have a bunch of contingencies, right? So my philosophy is put enough into retirement so that if you just kind of let it grow by itself, you're going to be fine in your 60s, right? The term, I call it coast-fi, right? It's a pretty, now it's becoming more popular, right? It's called coast-fi, which means you load these accounts enough where if you just let them ride, when you're old, you can still retire.
Got it.
So
yeah.
Even if you mess up everything, you're 60 something, you're like, I'm still good.
Yeah.
Right. So for a lot of people, especially if you're young and you're a hustler, and if you're investing, you don't need as much as you think in these accounts. Right. It really depends on your goals. Right. But I find that a lot of people put too much in. So you kind of have to do the math and figure out, and it's a little bit of a harder calculation. That's why I have to help so many people. Right. But it's, you want to put just as much in, so then naturally it compounds and grows, so it's okay in the future. And then I would argue, if you know what that number is and you have excess, conservatively pull the excess out then. Pay the penalty, pay the taxes, that's fine. But as long as you know, this is not just coming out, I'm doing nothing with it, right? If this is going to help with the business, right? That's one path. That's the more conservative path. Now everyone has that option. The other option is if I do pull this money out and I realize I'm going to blow up my future, so this means this plan has to work, this business plan has to work, right? And this is how it's going to generate revenue. And then later we can talk about this. A lot of entrepreneurs, also business owners, they invest all back into their business, right? They grow the business, but they don't actually take some of that out and then use it for their own personal investments. That's the other mistake too, right? You go all in the business, but you forget, at some point the business, not everyone has the glorified, I'm going to exit my business and I'm going to get a huge payout.
Right.
Not every business is set up like that, right? So you want to always make sure, yes, you want to set yourself up for that, but then if you're profitable, you want to make sure you take some money out too and then start investing it on the side. So you're also okay, right? Multiple contingencies. So those are kind of the two paths, right?
Got it. No, I love that. I love that there's exit strategies and contingencies, like you said. I want to kind of pivot more now at this point to talk about your business,
Sure.
The financial hospital. So you were practicing as an oncologist.
Called GPA, yeah.
At what point did the thought of this business come? And how do you help people? I've spent years around real estate, business, entrepreneurs, and one thing that I've noticed is that everyone talks about tactics. Very few talk about principles and decisions that shape one's life.
I think Where the business started was actually when I was still in school. Because after I figured out the finances for my mom, I was like, you know what? Like, I gotta apply this for myself, right? And it's like, okay, well, different timelines for me, different income, and like I said, different retirement path, right? And I was like, this is really cool stuff. I wonder if people know about it. They don't know about it. So I started with my class, right? And I was like telling all my classmates, bless my souls, my classmates, like had to put up with me. I'm like, hey, like, tell me about your situation, right?
Yeah.
So I talked to all of them, and it was like really rewarding for me. And what I ended up doing is I made a document, a Word doc, and I put down all the tips, student loans, things about your career, things about investing, things about retirement on like a Google Doc. And I shared it with them. I'm like, it's too much for me to explain to everybody like all the time. Like, here it is, long form. And the day I knew like, hey, I'm onto something is where I tried logging into that document like a couple of weeks later, and it wouldn't let me in because it was at capacity.
Oh, wow.
Because it was being shared, right? It was being shared with other people who were like, oh, wow, this is really helpful. So I was like, oh, okay, what should I do next? So then what I ended up doing was I started doing like lectures at other PA and NP schools. My wife's an NP, so also help NPs, and started posting on social, right? Had a blog and all this stuff. And eventually people were like, hey, like, how do we work directly with you, right? Like, I want some one-on-one time. And that's kind of how the business evolved, right? In the beginning, it was just like giving out and just spreading the knowledge and then helping people one-on-one. And then eventually it was like, you know what? I actually think like, because at a certain point, what happened is like you do a lot of free stuff, you give all your time away, and then afterwards you're like, I'm kind of drained, right? And then the wife is like, are you gonna get paid for this? Like, I understand you're passionate about this, but like if you're not present and if you're not home with the family, there has to be like at least like make sure it's worth it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like, well, the easiest way to make sure it's worth it is like you have to get paid for it. And it was hard to charge people in the beginning, especially if you've been doing stuff for free. But as we'll talk about more, it's like a good mentor told me this. It's like it's not selling stuff to people. It's not sales. Like if you genuinely have something that you think will help people, if you don't promote it and if you don't tell everybody about it, then like you're doing them a disservice.
Yes.
Because if they don't hear your advice and if they don't hear your experience and you think it's going to help them, if you don't tell people, at least that's how a lot of entrepreneurs feel. It's like it's actually disservice.
Yeah.
Right. And the payment is two things. It's one, I tell all the people that I work with, right? The payment is a investment, right? It's investment in yourself, and you have to have skin in the game. I've learned that, right? Like people, you buy 24-hour fitness pass, you're gonna go to it, $10, $20 a month? Probably not, right? Yeah. Go to Equinox. That thing is so expensive. You're gonna pay for it, and you're gonna show up, right? So it's skin in the game, and you got to make sure you deliver. And over time, the business has grown, right? So essentially, I mean, in short, what I do for PAs and MPs is like I have a model where I try to set people free and to have more flexibility earlier. So like in their 30s and 40s. As you probably know, 30s and 40s suck, right? Yeah. And a lot of us, at least going to healthcare, and a lot of people nowadays, right? You have to kind of deprive yourself and then grind, right? And you're going through whether it's your bachelor's and then your master's, if you want to pursue more education, you can, and then at least for a lot of us go into professional training. So you're just like, okay, like you're deprived, and you're like, okay, when I make six figures, it's gonna fix all of it. It's true, it fixes it temporarily, but then what they don't tell you is like costs will like in your 30s, everything happens, right? Like kids, marriage, your car breaks down, right? Yes. You wanna buy a home, parents get older, right? And it only gets more painful, right? So a lot of people, it's like you're building, like where the burnout happens, it's like you're trying to survive in your day-to-day and you're also like trying to save for the future. And if you don't have a good balance between the two and you don't do it in the right ratio, you're gonna feel really pissed. Yeah. You're like this, like a lot of people tend to overdo because there's a lot of like talk, which is true, like you should save for the future, but if you do it incorrectly and you can't access it for now, right, you're gonna feel really crappy. Especially if pretend like, oh, you threw all this money into retirement and then you had a really big expense come up and you don't have the money for it. And it's like, then what do you have to do? You either work more or you put in credit card debt, and then and if you can't pay that off, the interest is faster than your investments. So you end up getting killed, right? Yeah. So what I do is I tell people, hey, like when I work with them, I try to, you're gonna love this. I focus a lot on cash flow in a lot of different ways, right? Increasing cash flow from active income, so helping you make sure you make as much money as possible. Like early on, there's ways to do this. And then also when money comes in, like, you keep enough for now, so like you're okay. So like emergency fund, future expenses, and you put just enough into retirement, right? So that you're okay, you don't blow up in the future, you take advantage of like employer matches and stuff. But then the rest of the money, you invest it in a way that's flexible, right? Things where if you needed the money, you can access it, and if it's growing, right? Pretty decent returns, and eventually like it can be passive and you don't have to look at it. And I find that like having accessible money and also passive monthly income comes in is what actually makes you feel wealthy, right?
Yeah.
If I was like, I always tell people this, if you had like $10 million in retirement, like how would you feel, right? I mean, technically you could pull it out. Maybe that's a bad example. It's like $10 million, like, I'll pull that out, right?
Yeah.
If you had like $1 million, right, in retirement, how would you feel? It's like, I feel good for later, but like nothing changes. I put $1 million, right, in a brokerage account for you. What changes? Like, oh, I can do this, right?
Yeah.
I can access this. $1 million in cash. Oh, I can deploy this. I can do other things, right?
Yeah.
And then the other question is, what if you had an extra 3K, 5K, 10K in passive income coming in? What changes in your life? Oh, I can spend a little bit more. I can work a little bit less, right? And I'm not so stressed about money. So a lot of people don't. It's like, yes, investing in retirement and like stock market will get you passive income, but it takes you a long time. Stocks work, index funds work, but they grow slowly, and it'll be a big number at the end, and then you sell it for passive income. But if you need income now, the only way to do it is you have to work more, right? Or spend less.
So on that example, how would you, like, can you give me an example of taking some of that that capital and reinvesting it for cash flow return? Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah. So there's two most common places that you can invest in. Like the first one is real estate, right? Real estate rentals, right? Buy a property, get some leverage, get some debt, and then you get it set up, rent it out. If your expenses are less than what comes in, you have residual income. That's one way, right? So even if you're not doing anything for it, but you know this, it's not fully passive, right? There's work and it doesn't always math out that well. And usually as a good real estate investor, most of the capital goes back into real estate initially until it's fully sustainable. But that's one form of passive income. Another type of passive income that I like is private lending.
Okay.
So being a PML, right? And where this kind of exists is for people who, it's kind of to understand this. It's like a lot of people go to banks for loans. But and that's fine, right? But there are people who need loans faster, less underwriting, and they need to do more of them, right? So conventional banking doesn't work always for these people. So PML is usually, you're a private lender, and you find usually real estate investors and business owners who need capital, who don't want to go through a bank, right? So what you do is you become the bank. You lend them your money, they pay you an interest rate, and it's a contract, personal guarantees usually, and then they pay you monthly interest. And that actually I find for a lot of people, a lot of people don't know about this. It's usually in investor circles or like super rich families. They do this. Like, I got capital here, I'll deploy it. And the easiest way to understand this is like when you give money to a bank, what does the bank do with your money?
They lend it out.
They lend it out, right? So it's like, oh, now you just become the bank and you lend it out. So I find that was a newer investment for me because I did a lot of real estate. And like it worked well, it cash flowed a lot, but it's also a lot of work. And real estate is a business, right? So a lot of my capital went back into it, so I couldn't spend any of it. If I did, I felt bad because I'm like, oh, I need this for real estate. So there's other things like syndications, right? The real estate funds, debt funds, private credit. They're versions of more passive investments that have cash flow. But private lending is probably the one where I say it's probably the most consistent. And it's relationship based. So these are examples of investments that like you put money in, but you have to have capital and you have to have the network and the relationship. And there are ways to have passive income come in.
Wow. I want to kind of pivot a little bit and start talking more about your business. So you serve PAs and NPs. For those that are listening to this conversation that might not necessarily know what a PA or NP is, can you explain what that looks like on a day-to-day for those types of individuals, and then how you help them specifically?
Yeah, so great question. So PAs and NPs, we're healthcare professionals, right? We go through 4 years of school, bachelor's, and then afterwards you have to have usually some clinical experience, and then you go into get your master's. And now a lot of people are getting their doctorates, right? More years of schooling, more years of clinical training, and then depending on if you're a PA or NP, or depending on the master you get, right, you go practice medicine, right? So it's very similar. Like sometimes you'll go see your like primary care, or you go to the hospital, right? Because we wear white coats, we have stethoscopes, and we take care of you, right? So it's not exactly the same as a doctor, right? But we can help, we do a lot of the things that doctors can, and we ultimately we help out in healthcare. That's what we do, right? You see us in every specialty, yeah, so that's PA, NP, right? And the way I help PAs and NPs is really like, so I have what I call a mentorship, right? And my goal is to be your mentor and to show you, hey, if you're someone who wants to be in control of your career, your time, your finances, and you want more flexibility and like freedom in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. So not excluding people in your 60s, but really because we graduate so like a little earlier, it's really important. There are some crucial steps you have to take at the very beginning to make sure like you're set up a lot easier later, right? There's a quote I like, it's like 3 to 5 years of really intentional planning sets you up for the rest of your life. And I think that is true, right?
Agreed.
Except for you, when you first come out, it's like, there's so much you have to do and you don't know where to focus, right? So for me, kind of like I was mentioning earlier, it's like when they come to me, I have to figure out their goals, right? Like, what are the things that are most important to you in your life, right? And what's the timeline for each thing? And then where are you currently now, right? What are you doing well? What are you not doing well? What are some red flags, right? And then I try to bridge that gap for you, right? And so I mentor them for finances, for their career. Life comes with it naturally,
right.
But ultimately I'm trying to make it so a lot of my clients, they have the option to work less in their 30s and 40s. Right, so our profession is really cool because we can change specialties, we can move. There's always work for us. We're pandemic proof, we're recession proof, and hopefully we're AI proof too.
Yeah.
Right, so there's job demand there. But where we get burnt out is that we feel like we have no options. Like I have to work full time, I have to work at this place. When that's not true, we have a lot of leverage, like career leverage. People don't realize that, but we also have like you can also create financial leverage, right? So like usually for clients who work with me, a really short amount of time with intentional planning, they're going to be set up for their retirement pretty quickly. Like this is how much you need based on your benefits, based on your investments, based on retirement accounts. You're going to be set for the future. This is how much money you need to hold now. This is what you can do with your career now. If you wanted to change it up, we can later. And then also, how do we start generating passive income for you as soon as possible? I think that's probably the biggest unlock is like, everyone knows how to create passive income for later, but no one teaches you how to create passive income today.
Wow.
And it's like, how do you find those people, right? You're not going to find them at work because you're all stuck too.
Yeah.
So where are all the people? They're having conversations like this and they're not working.
Yeah.
And you think that they're working hard, but they're doing it by choice, right? I'm sure a lot of people you're going to interview too. Like we work harder now than we did before, but I choose to do it.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. So
So that's kind of what I try to do, and I try to catch them early. And if they're aligned with it, and they do want more freedom, more flexibility, younger, there's a very specific way to do it, and I try to walk them through what I did, what makes sense for their situation. So then, like, because the ultimate goal is to make sure you have happy and wealthy and not burnt out PAs and NPs. So then they're better providers too. Right? You don't want to see you go to your primary care person and they're like pissed, right? They're stressed about money and they don't want to see you, right? Like the best provider is a financially free one. Could you imagine seeing someone? They're like, I got all the time. I'm here by choice and I have money.
Yeah.
So like, I'm here for you. That's the best provider.
Yeah, and to kind of go off of what you're saying is that freedom or the flexibility rather, that also ties in with your energy.
Correct.
Like how you show up is exactly what you just said. Imagine if you weren't tired or weren't stressed out and you had a little bit more flexibility, how would you show up to your patients?
Yeah.
Right? You would give them better care, right? Probably better results.
Yeah. Like it's very different. It's like a lot of people, they're chasing like retirement, they're chasing financial freedom. Like what you actually want is just options.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to choose. And it's not like if you want absolute financial freedom, it's a lot of hard work, right? Yeah. But if you just want like a little bit more flexibility and you want to have more options, passive income helps a lot with that. You don't need crazy amounts. It'll happen with time, but it gives you space to breathe.
That's good. What would you say is like your most common frustration or pain point for the clients that you serve?
I think it's a lot of a lot of traditional advice, right? Where it's like, work hard, stay at the same job, keep putting money into retirement accounts, hold a lot of cash. It's good advice, but it sets you up long term.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest pain point. And then it feels good. Everyone tells you're feeling good. And then when 30s and 40s hit and the pain increases, right? And like you need more flexibility. If your plan is inflexible, that's where it hurts a lot. That's where I felt, right? I was like, I'm doing everything right, but all my money is trapped here. So that like the retirement account's a trap. Paying down your student loans really aggressively is a trap, right? Because a lot of us graduate with like 6 figures, some like 300K. It's crazy, right? The amount of debt we graduate with. And the other one is primary homes. If you're not careful about like how big of a home you buy, that traps you too. So, but that's the 3 things that happen, right? You graduate and it's like, okay, stay at the same place, and then your income stays pretty stagnant. You're throwing everything into a house. You're throwing everything into a primary home, right? And then trying to pay off all your debt at the same time. You have no money for today. And then you're just like, I'm trying to do everything, and the only thing you can do is like, if you're stuck, is work more, which is okay in the beginning if you're young, but you can't do that forever. Right? And then that's where it hurts, and that's where usually I try to find people before that happens, but the other people that find me is like, I'm hitting this wall, and like I literally checked off all the boxes, but the result is not what I want. And what is it that people want? Is just more flexibility, more options.
We talked about this off camera. Is a lot of the times the people that you see that are successful in business oftentimes serve people. And another thing we talked about was oftentimes, and you serve people and you don't get anything right away, immediately. And it's not until maybe year 2, 3, 4, when you start to see results, when you start to maybe get paid for your profession. As you started to scale, what was something that was harder than you expected growing your business, and what lesson did you learn from that?
It's a really, really good question. And it's like, we're still learning, right, as entrepreneurs. But I think the advice that stayed true was you always want, like you were saying, you always want to be serving, right? And at least in the beginning, it's really important to niche down, right? So for me, the reason I think my business had a lot of success is because anytime I made content and anytime I like did the work I did, right, it was always for like a previous version of me, right? Where it's like, if I was this person, like what did I wish I like what advice or what mentor do I wish I had access to at that stage? Because that's what it helped a lot, right? So that's where it started, right? And making sure you always keep that in mind, because as your business grows, you're going to have a lot more voices come, and then it's going to get muddied. Right? People who are not part of your ideal audience, or people with like contrasting views, and you're like, well, I could also see your point, and then your business now becomes it loses its original meaning because you're trying to make everyone happy. Right. And for me, I think what's most important is, one, always try to serve, right? And then also like always know your audience. Always know your audience and be consistent, always listen to them. And then especially in like a coaching business or anytime you have clients, right? Make sure you're also like doing a good job with your product. Right? Make sure the people you're actually helping. There are some people who, unfortunately, a lot of influencers out there, right, where their marketing and sales is great, but the product isn't that great. But they're louder. They're louder. So it's like, okay, that's fair too. But at least for me, I think for a business to be sustainable and do it long term, you always have to think about, who am I actually like trying to serve? And like, is my messaging always for them? And is this something that like, if I was in their shoes, I would find helpful? Right? It sounds simple, but people lose sight of it because you see what other people are doing, you see what other and then it no longer becomes you're just trying to copy other people. Right? And you lose kind of the original purpose. It's like, I'm just trying to help people that I think like would have benefited from this, like the younger version of me. I think as you scale, just make sure that doesn't go away. You can grow the business in different ways, but make sure that you're still delivering value. And then you're being authentic, right? I think that's how you stand apart. Because people lose authenticity and they forget who they're serving. And then once you lose sight of that, usually it's like you're trying to scale, make more money. But if you lose sight of that, people can tell. Especially with AI now, it's like, oh, like this person's not there anymore. Like what happened?
Right. No, that's important. I think the big takeaway here is for anybody that's listening is to serve, to give. And what I've found on my own journey personally is that like early on in my journey, I had very, very like limiting beliefs on everything. And I just felt like there was no options for me. And, you know, that was something that I had to navigate. The more that I gave and the more that I served and the more that I helped without any expectation, it somehow came back to me tenfold. Me personally, the relationships are way more valuable than money. The money will come as long as you're doing good intentions and you're serving, everything else will come. And, you know, build something that is, like you said, sustainable, and keeping that clarity there, because you will get a lot of noise and you'll see somebody doing all this and you kind of, they say the shiny object syndrome, right? And staying focused and authentic, I think that is like on the money when you talk about growing. Something else that I want to ask you is that in building your business, for somebody else that's listening, what is like a practical step that you can share to help them get over the hump and actually start taking action to build that business?
It's a good question as well. These are good questions, Jay. I think the first thing probably would be to, I think the easiest way to start is probably to if there was a problem that was like really painful for you that you figured out, see if other people are having this problem, right? So and because if you've solved it, turns out people similar to you probably had the same problems, right? I think like that's probably the easiest way to start. Is there something in my life that was like actually really painful, that was really difficult, that like not a lot of people talked about? Because you'd be surprised. Everyone thinks like I have to have this genius idea of like a business in order to be successful. I remember I was learning there's this person who like has this really successful business teaching others how to do balloon animals online.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's like a multi-million-dollar business, and it's just like she just teaches people how to make balloon animals. And it's like, that's really dope, right? It's not this like, I just solved or figured. I mean, it's cool like what I do, but it's also like, you don't have to have this crazy sophisticated, it was just my business because it was relevant for my life. And if you felt like you had something you were going through or a problem that was really hard for you, that's causing a lot of pain, or that was really frustrating, or it wasn't, and like you solved it and it was like really like, it was wow, this was really cool. When if other people, if there's a demand for it, start there. Right? Because that's the easiest. Because what you don't want to do is like, you don't want to do something that you're actually not good at and it's not an actual problem. Right? Because you're just making things up. Oh, like what if I were to create this thing? I was like, you don't like, it's not, you don't even know if that's even a problem yet, right? So I find that if you do want to start your business, the best way to start is where did you have massive pain or massive success in your life? And then if you solved it, reverse engineer it. I'm pretty sure someone, right, with similar shoes will find it valuable, and that's a good place to start.
100%. Wow. That was a lot of gems that you dropped there, Wilson. I think at this point, I just wanted to take this to a close and really just honor you, man. Like I've seen you just explode online with your business. And like you said, it's not just the outward things, it's the inward things and the people that you're really trying to serve and actually making a difference by giving your knowledge, your wisdom on your pain points and how you've helped and you've grown that business. So I wanted to honor you and celebrate you, because I think it's important for people to hear your journey to your success. And what's important is not the success, but it's the blueprint of your story that becomes somebody else's success, right? So just wanted to thank you for sitting down and having this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. And for those that are listening, where can people find you and learn more about you?
Yeah. So best place you can find me is on Instagram. I'm most active there. Wilson_invests. It's me in a white coat, yellow background. And that's where I'm most active. You can find a lot of my stuff there. And then I do have a website. It's called thefinancehospital.com.
Yeah. Last thing is that my hope in this conversation is that the listeners take this and extrapolate what applies to them and realize that they don't have to have everything figured out. They have to be intentional and put in the effort and be authentic and serve. And that's when the success will come. It won't be immediate, but it will come as long as you stay clear, stay focused, and stay intentional. So thank you for joining, and thank you again, Wilson, and we will see you on the